Oh, we're live. Sweet. It usually takes me through some crazy old thing. We didn't even know, next thing you know, you're live. Hey, uh, big show today. We've got,
Huge.
see, that happens to me every time.
Huge.
It's
Amateur hour over there in the studio. I know.
All right. So anyways, I've been talking to some people that I even know that work with ports, no ports. And even they say that like a lot of this, more of the insiders know, like really what's going on as in like, we all know the gist of it. The guy we're going to have on today, Trevor, I got him. He was referred to me by Sarah Barnes Humphreys. And I know she knows a lot about that stuff. So she highly recommended him. He's going to be on here in just a minute. He's actually got like a super important call with a new client or investor, something like that. So we all know how that.
Well,
Hey, Darnell
just
apparently
froze
took a
up.
month-long vacation. Oh,
You're back. You're
okay.
back.
All right. So Tony apparently took a month-long vacation, instead of a shorter one like normal people do. Hang on, let me get my internet here. Internet should be fine. So I reached out to my bro Chaz. Rumor hasn't answered me yet, but I think it's because he's obviously in Scotland. Who knows what the hell he's doing?
Well, no, shout out to Nick Rumor because he's having a baby tomorrow. A
Oh,
little busy.
yeah.
Little busy. He let me know today that he's not going to make it on Word on the Street at noon Central tomorrow, 1 Eastern time, because he's going to be becoming a new daddy. So
we've all got.
Shout out to Nick Rumor.
I've been through that. It's not. He could have came on. Kids, he's got a whole lifetime with his kid, and I'm disappointed he didn't let me know. But hey, maybe next week we'll have Hold My Baby. We're talking trade, and we can have him on, right?
That's probably all he'll be doing. Just be sitting there, just holding and just sitting. So
I was about to say, is that just holding a baby, or is that like a baby in one hand and a beer in the other? Like I'm trying to figure out when we start holding.
Well, babies just sleep in the first week, so he could do both. He could tell.
Well, baby, like a few months, babies are useless.
He's baby in a glass of scotch. So
useless. That's pretty strong language. All right.
Oh, they just sleep, man. They sleep, they poop, they eat. They're completely uninteresting for like the first 6 months.
I loved it, man. My kids talk now. And it's it's always like you run through like terrible twos and everything because they're getting it. I'd rather have that. Once they start talking, it's like
I enjoyed watching them sleep too, man. I just enjoyed watching them grow and sleep. And I was looking for that first smile, looking for their eyes to open up and look right at me, and looking for them to hold my finger, like just these little connection points. I loved it.
See, that's like when I fell in love with my kids. Like, well, at least my son. By the time my daughter was born, I was used to having kids at that point. But I didn't really feel like I became a father until I was sitting at a restaurant one day with my son because my wife was at work or something like that. And I had to feed him, but he he looked up at me and smiled for the first time. This is about 4 or 5 months in. Like that to me is the day I became a father. Like when my son actually engaged with me as like a being.
You didn't feel like a father when you were buying diapers at the store or changing them in the middle of the night at 2 a.m? Huh?
No, because I didn't want kids.
All right.
See, at that point, it was just something I had to do.
I didn't watch them sleep. I bailed as soon as they fell asleep so I could get something done. Maybe when they were younger, maybe I did, but I would go in and check to make sure their eyes weren't open because they were supposed to go to sleep and they weren't going to sleep and weren't listening, So you run into that, but no, I think when they're younger, I think you do get more of those moments. And then when they get older, I think, having 3, I think you just got to get them by themselves. I think, I've got 9, 7, and 5. You get them by themselves. They're blessed angels together. They're just a bunch of hellions. But that's just how it is. And it's funny because, they've got friends now and a lot of them are just our friends' kids, but I'd rather have 2 friends over to stay the night with them and have 5 kids than just the 3 alone, because it's like, yes, it's more kids, but they're not picking on each other and,
they entertain each other.
They entertain each other. They go in their room and they're in there. You don't hear from them, for a little bit. And you actually get a little bit of downtime. And, my wife is an absolute saint, being married to somebody who's been in logistics for as long as I have. And
that's the truth.
But also, with the kids too. Oh yeah, dude. It was, when I was dispatching, especially, drivers, I learned tricks to try to get them off the phone. But I became friends with a lot of them, you know, and they'd want to talk for quite a bit. And I know I gave them attention and everything, but I'd have to pop out in the garage. She just knew, you know, if I had, you know, talk with somebody, or, you know, I put them on speaker for in the car, and they, hey, Ashley, how's it going? And she'd be like, oh, not bad. How are you? Ah, shit. I got in here. This guy don't even know where they don't even have a load for me, son of a bitch. And she's like, oh my God, I don't even know. But you know, it's one of those things that, you know, she just got used to. You know, if she knew she was going to drive a route that she didn't go by any warehouses or manufacturing, because I'd want to slow down and see what trailers were there, or you know, whatever it was. So it's just part of it. And the kids get older, and we're on trips, and we talk about all the different trucks and trailers. And back then I had the old office had a tractor trailer shop right on the attached to it, really, and a yard. And so when the kids would come down, you know, some of the drivers, if they were there, I'd show them they'd show them the trucks, and just being that small and being around things that are that big to them is really cool. And I had a guy drop a trailer here in Auburn, because I live in an addition, and because he had a bobtail in for my son's birthday. He was at a birthday party, and he brought his truck in and came up to the driveway, honked his horn. They all got to get in. And so, you know, I paid him to deadhead, but you know, it's one of those things that I think that for a while you start to try to balance it, question yourself a little bit, you know, because you get so into it in this industry. But once they start getting involved and they love it, and they've got toy trucks, and I think it makes that much more rewarding.
Yeah, I don't have a single child. I don't have a single child, and I'm completely noodled by this conversation.
Well, let's get Will in here, because you may have talked about this, Will, a little bit on past episodes. I don't know, but I want to hear about, you know, the last 4 weeks at Molo and the experience of going through an acquisition, and, you know, what's changed, what's the same, what's been the biggest challenge. I just want to hear about that, if you don't mind sharing whatever you can share.
Yeah, so I'll just talk very high level on, you know, just communication and whatnot with the team. So, you know, we've always been very transparent about the fact
I love that about you guys.
Yeah, so transparent about the fact that, you know, we're finding ways to raise more money to continue to grow the business. And you look at the clip that our business has grown, it's a very capital intensive business. So you have to have a lot of liquidity to be able to keep the business moving. And, you know, an opportunity with a company like ArcBest, when you look at the things that they do very well, coupled with the things that we do well, you know, primarily full truckload, brokerage, food and bev, drive and refrigerated, you know, we dominate that space, and they're unbelievably good at LTL and a handful of other service offerings that we don't offer. You know, it's been really cool to be able to have conversations with the team and just talk about the opportunities that will continue to come up because of having resources that I just think about being a small, scrappy startup for 4 years that works unbelievably hard to do everything. And now you have, you know, a 98-year-old company with very, very developed infrastructure and a lot of resources to be able to take advantage of. So that's something that's been exciting. And also you just think about continuing to build brand recognition and what that does to being able to walk into certain opportunities. And, you know, a year or two ago, we were just the 2-year-old freight brokerage out of Chicago. And now people know who we are. And it's been a lot of fun. Obviously, there's still a ton of work to do in terms of integrating the businesses. I mean, we're like at the most infant of infancy stages as we start to really work through the true, you know, roll your sleeves up and figure out how to get everybody working together to gain from the efficiency of having 2 strong businesses. So it's exciting. It's been a whirlwind of 4 weeks, but very fun.
I bet. Let me ask you a question. What do you anticipate, or what would you project as the time to take 2 businesses like ArcBest and Molo and fully integrate them from a systems perspective, communication processes?
Man, it's tough to say. I know that we can anticipate a lot of back and forth between the different offices that we have, getting everybody up to speed on tech and culture and processes and whatnot. And the speed at which everybody picks up on certain things is going to vary depending on, you know, how much, you know, how long they've been in the business, how much do they know freight, or are they a new hire? Is it someone that's tenured and whatnot? It's probably going to take, you know, all of the rest of 2021 and a very heavy lift in 2022, because you think about a multi-billion-dollar company like theirs. We'll do $650 million this year. There's just a lot of moving parts between the two, and so it's no small feat, but it is one of those fun challenges to have to work through, because once you start getting everything moving in the right direction, I'm most intrigued about the opportunities that we'll be able to take advantage of as one unit.
And I can imagine that merging two cultures has got to be very, very difficult. Sorry, TJ, but that's very fascinating.
Oh, I don't, what I loved about it was I loved ArcBest. We used to use them all the time for, they didn't let us broker, but they let us use our trucks on their stuff and expedites and stuff. And they call it, like, just talking to every one of them on the phone. I don't know. I never had a bad experience with ArcBest. So
they're great, man. Great team, great culture. They've done, amazing things building their business. And we couldn't be more excited about joining a team like that to be able to continue to build the brand that we have. So it's very exciting.
So
yeah, it's awesome.
Speaking of that real quick here, we got Trevor Andersen joining us, who maybe be able to give you a little consulting on that. Will, I don't know. Is there anything that this guy doesn't do? You just look, it's very impressive. Just look at your LinkedIn profile and everything. But you were referred to me through Sarah Barnes Humphrey, and the big thing for us is, we wanted to talk, right now we're kind of talking, with Will's merger and whatnot, but Tony Darnell's on vacation again. He's what, 2 weeks now?
3 weeks in.
Yeah, 3 weeks in. And so I was like, hey, let's get some guest hosts on here. So Trey Griggs and Will's a regular, but Nico and come on and have some guest hosts and have some chat till you got on. But go give us a little background on yourself, Trevor, and kind of what all you're doing now and what you've done in the past.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. It's great to meet all you guys. And I apologize already because I've been going since like 4:30 this morning. Just kind of moving from thing to thing. So my background. So I spent a very long period of time at Ports America. So I was a director of finance and ops and business development. I had a lot of terminals underneath me. One of the things that I learned over my career in finance and operations was finance was driven by operations. It's not the other way around. And I learned it very quickly. So I didn't go to school for traditional finance or accounting. It was business management, and then really putting numbers on a spreadsheet and turning them in price, productivity, and processes. And really it was like a game, if you will, of brokerage versus reality versus safety versus quality, and understanding the different inflection points at a very, very busy terminal, whether it be on the West Coast or New York, New Jersey, Savannah, Charleston, and then the smaller ones as well, because, the blood from a stone thing is a really true anomaly, if you will, depending on if you're staged correctly. And, I had a blast working there. I spent a ton of years. I spent some time in manufacturing, some supply chain, advertising, all in accounting and finance and operations. And then more recently, I hopped into my own business model and started my own consulting business in working as a fractional executive in the ops and finance realm for small businesses and startups. And I still do coaching and consulting on the supply chain side and logistics space. That's me. I love what I do. I've been very fortunate, had a lot of good mentors, both operators as well as some of the larger lines. And, not only did they teach me about pricing, but they taught me the way of the land that I never would have seen before through the finance lens. That's me.
What's really cool is, and what I love about this show, you've got, Nico, who's a business owner, owns his own marketing business. You got Trey Griggs, who's VP of sales at Lean Solutions. You got Will Jenkins, who's founder and vice president over at Molo Solutions. I've seen senior director of ops, a lot of experience. And I think what we're going to dive in on is something that none of us really know much about. And it's cool to bring, guys that know a ton about, and I learned from every one of these guys and everybody we have on that are, it's still exciting to learn, because there's always so much to know and do. And I think for us, I hear, my wife, my mom, my dad, like, people that I know that, are talking about supply chain now for the first time in,
forever, right?
Forever, and so it's, whether or not, I've talked to a couple people I know that work in the ports and whatnot, or work with it. And they're like, a lot of the stuff only the really people on the inside know, like current, but like for us, anything about it really is valuable, because a lot of people it's kind of a separate space that people don't dive into, maybe because it is so complicated.
Well, I mean, I could tell you pricing at the terminal operations level is probably one of the most complex transaction things I've ever seen in my entire adult life. Just the sheer number of variables, the complexity of productivity, and the difficultness of having multiple rates and making sure things are captured, right? Just having a rate for one thing, you would think, oh, it's just X per unit and these units move per speed. Well, if you don't control the dirt that you sit on and you're an under the hook stevedore, which is, definition a squatter, if I call it, so appropriately, versus, you have a concession with the port, you dictate where things sit. And just as being in traffic, when you can't control the lanes of the road, you're at the mercy of how other people drive. So, it's very much the same thing. And to take numbers and then say that this is what it's going to be based on these averages is so difficult, because that changes based on seasonality, weather, the type of cargo you're moving, whether it be something that's got four wheels that moves very quickly or something that's ultra expensive. I remember in the port of Baltimore, there was a big McLaren discharge operation there. McLarens are $1 million cars. You would think that these things are super fast, but they move slower than a Toyota Civic or a Honda Civic. I'm sorry, I'm very tired. So putting the price points together and ensuring that you have the right people looking around. So then you have a contingent of men. And I think that's one of the harder things, is understanding the contingent of men at any given port, because it's not the same up and down the East Coast or the West Coast. Meaning, like, if I'm in New York, New Jersey versus the Gulf versus Georgia, I could have a different contingent of men with a different guarantee on hours and a different way of working. Although they're under the same umbrella. Oh, scared the crap out of me. Although they're under the same umbrella, it makes for a difficult challenge. So now if I'm pricing Wallenius Wilhelmsen lines and they operate in all three of those ports, how do I do it? I got to bring in all the operators. I got to understand what the metrics are at every given terminal. But then I have to look at that in a consolidated format and say, all right, do I have a loss leader? What's kind of my weighted average? What do I want to take from all this? And to build things that have flexibility to move that number is damn near impossible. I don't think anyone does it completely right, personally. I even fail at it, quite honestly.
So you dealt with a lot of the pricing, a lot of RFPs as well, right? And some of that stuff. And so how do you really, I mean, is it a bigger, because I know a lot, like in brokerage, and Will, you can attest this. I think what maybe separates me and Will is that, when an RFP came out or we were doing that, we looked to have those conversations and learn and understand what they wanted. But a lot of times it's just, hey, here's a file, fill it out, send it in, you win lanes, you get them.
Update the numbers, right?
But on your end, I mean, it sounds like you're gonna probably have to do a little more research on them as well, and have a better conversation, because you can't afford to have somebody that comes in, prices it, gets it, and has no idea what they're doing.
Well, I mean, that's why I spent a lot of time on the road. At every port, every manager knew who I was. I knew what was happening. I would work shifts to understand what was happening. I couldn't just rely on, hey, I move 2 moves an hour per man. I'd watch it. I'd clock it with a little stopwatch, and I'd get real time information. And then, putting that all together, as you said, a lot of these RFPs are custom designed to, you have to back into numbers, meaning like they're going to set a standard so that everyone kind of appropriately responds for them to trigger it and put analysis in their own way. But the back end to get to that template was a nightmare. So you'd have that front end sexy template that would have those 17 data points of a high and heavy, break bulk cargo, a 40 footer, 50 footer, whatever the case is. But the background to get there would be so much lower level data, and it would be its own financial model almost to get to all those rates. So it was a nightmare. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why I work with operations. And I said, I'm an operating finance guy. To me, I didn't drive cargo. I am not a day-to-day operations manager. So the things that happen at the port level, there was no way of me knowing unless I was there. How are you going to know that when you move a rock crusher or a crane or a big ro-ro, that the bridge wire that's, from one building to another off, deck C is low enough that it'll capture it. So now I got to go all the way down the berth and go around. As a finance person that is valuing numbers from the outside looking at a spreadsheet, there's no way we'll ever know that. It's impossible. But you rely heavily on your operations. And I mean, those are the things that it's almost like tricks of the trade, if you will.
Yeah, that. I didn't even know what a lot of that meant. So
Sorry.
To understand that, and
just saying what we're all thinking.
So, question for you. Sorry, when you're looking at those models, like to get to that sweet bottom level price, like I'm assuming obviously that at times, your calculations going into that model are incorrect. Like you're going to project something that ends up being a loss for your company.
Yeah.
How often can you renegotiate those rates though? Are you locked into that loss for like 6 months, a year?
I mean, listen, if it's like a liner contract, it's longer, right? There's concessions. Some of the bigger guys are now doing like the multi-year contracts opposed to annual ones that are just kind of, I'll call it break fix. Every year it goes out to RFP. It really depends on the liner. Right. Well,
how many times do you check your numbers then? I mean, if you're doing that complex of a model, like I'm assuming you're checking it multiple times each time update a number.
That's the idea, right? So you would think in between a contract period, you would have a better baseline of data. But I'll give you an example. Let's say you do a rate that's weighted to one cargo versus the other. Like I always know that Buick Rivieras are going to come through the port of New Orleans, which is not the case. It's rubber down there. But I always know it's Buick Rivieras. Now, like I know I want to make more money at that rate. So I waited a little bit more. Now Buick Rivieras are out. No one ever wants to buy them. I mean, we're going to EVs anyway, so gas cars are eventually going to be the way to pass. But think about it like that. I mean, so you put stipulations in the contract that this rate is then by definition reviewed every quarter. I mean, but there's only so much you can put in. So, like I said, as a standard, you're competing with every other stevedore and operator out there. So you have to it's about quality. To me, that you can't sacrifice that and safety. I'm very, very big on safety and quality, right? Numbers are very, very important, but if you're not doing it safe and correct, what's the purpose?
No, Trevor, I got a follow-up question on that. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. No, go ahead.
I have a question about how do companies typically prioritize those three things? Quality, safety, and price.
All right. So I will tell you my personal opinion. I won't speak for any company I've worked for because I wouldn't do that, right? To me, quality naturally will bring price. Safety, if done right and efficient, I'm a process-driven person, will bring speed, which will bring price. So to me, obviously safety is first, first and foremost for the workers and everyone that touched it. Quality is next. And then to me, price would be last. But if I'm doing the other two right, my price is going to be, my price is then just found if you put it in such a way. That's just my personal opinion though. I caveat that, very much my personal opinion.
Appreciate that.
So looking at it from, we got a little insight there on the pricing and how that works, and maybe even touch on how that may be affecting what's going on right now. But what are your thoughts, whether or not you know for sure, or whether you just have a hunch of you're going to have a better idea or a better guesstimate, or even if that ends up being what it is, of really why it's been so long without a lot of solutions brought to the table. I mean, I saw the other day that Mayor of Long Beach and one of the guys there got together and they went to be able to stack 5 high, 4 high in some spots, but like it's been over a year we've had these issues, at the ports. What is it that is hindering that progress?
You mean like just in hate creativity? I guess I'll tell you what was successful for me was that partnership, right? So if you're spending time with operators every day, you see things. As I mentioned, that low cable, that's a very specific thing in the Port of New Jersey that I noticed. So to me, can you change the way of working? And a lot of the times the ideas came from the operations. I mean, listen, I had some good ideas. I like to think so, but a lot of it came from the teams I worked with. Like, how do we look at virtual reality in such a way that allows us to get in and do almost like beyond crane kind of overviews and how things move fast, but some of that cargo that's not moved by gigantic cranes, which is a large majority of cargo. It's kind of dwarfed by the amount of container volume. But how do we then make those things a little bit more efficient? And innovation at the port. So I think partnership is one. I think knowing that you're not taking away from union jobs, right? It's how do you make it more efficient for them to do their job? And to me, sometimes this is where the big disconnect in finance and accounting and operations is it's a set number versus a process. And the number dictates obviously other things, right? There's boards, there's firms, there's management, that everyone's driven off a number. But if the process has changed, as again, I go back to like the safety, quality, which is just process and maintaining kind of ways of working, you'll naturally see price and you'll see efficiency. And efficiency is either reduction of cost or an opportunity to find new price, like a thing that you didn't know you were charging for. I'll give you an example. Let's say I was driving cars on and off a ship and the cars were low gas. So now I need to slow my operation down because maybe one or two of them just dead. They never make it off the ship, or jumping them, right? Common thing, batteries are dead. So can I charge for that? Which I should be able to if the contract allows it. But maybe I don't need to charge $100 to move the vehicle. Maybe I can kind of get some ancillary things. And looking at the billable contract to me is an efficient way. And having those relationships more than just at the budget time. We got to do a budget once a year. Let's sit with everybody and figure out what we're going to do. That's
an interesting point. And I don't know if you've thought about it this way, but like when you were talking about like, not charging somebody like $100 to move a car, trying to look at like ancillaries, does it help when you're dealing with a client, depending on how you're charging them? Like, does that really make a difference in the relationship long term?
I think if you can provide a solution that, let's be honest, right? A large majority of the cost is fuel and consumption, right? There's decarbonization going on where we're trying to look at that and everything else, but that's a dwarfing cost than, paying for units to get on and off cargo ships. So if you can find ways to address that in a safe manner, to me, that makes you sticky, right? It's not just it's going up the value chain, not the supply chain, going up the value chain. And are there services that you're not doing today that you could be a part of, right? I think of the auto industry to me, right? There's auto processors that take a car and do the finished type goods, where they're doing electronic campaigns, the standard things that come on to when we get them from a dealer. As an operator, can you get yourself involved in that? Right? So now they're getting a single source, but getting everything done. So yeah, to your question, I think it makes us very sticky. Right? And you're trying to find ways to get them out faster. You may want to charge more, but what's the turnoff? Like an ROI. You're charging me $5 more, but I'm going to get out 10 hours faster. Just the fuel burn alone will eat that $10 up every day of the week. I guess looking at it in that perspective makes a big difference.
And I'd say that's one big thing that really does link, that is relative and very much common in our side. Will, I think you'd agree. I could charge a carrier, X amount, or whatever, or I could, he may be charging me whatever it is, but, he may accept something different. I may be able to just get him a hotel room for the night or something, right? Because I don't want to go to my customer, charge him, because of this situation. And then, but I've always said though, that it's always good for us as a broker or even a carrier, if you're dealing with a customer, is to let them know though, because a lot of them want to go back to those ground levels, to those shippers, and make their process more efficient. They don't want to pay out detention right now. They're going to, because they should. But if you don't ask for detention and you don't charge detention, they can't sit down at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year and say, hey, this is what we're spending.
Yes.
We really got to make this more efficient. We got to open another dock. We got to have another forklift driver on third shift, right? We got to have this or that. We've had multiple incidents in which guys are needing to use the restroom. We're holding them on site or whatever. Let's get some porta potties on site. Something in which they know the benefit of keeping a relationship where they could charge, they could not pay, but instead they come up and they go up the value spectrum rather than the money spectrum.
Yeah, I wonder if it makes, like, at my last employer, like sometimes as opposed to charging, like more for a device, you would, inbred some like or give a discount on the price of the device and work it into a service or an activation fee or something like that.
Yeah, right. Where you're, there we go.
And I get that that's common, so it's not like I'm like, ooh, we found something out magical. No, I wonder though if that is a differentiator in what wins or loses people RFPs sometimes. Because of how you actually present what you're charging, not necessarily what you're charging. Like if I'm charging you $100 per unit to move, this widget from here to here, it might irritate you. But if I'm saying that I'm charging you $80, plus a fuel surcharge because of my cost for the fuel, if that makes a difference when you're presenting an RFP and whether or not it's accepted.
Well, I mean, listen, I've lost my fair share of RFPs. By no means am I an expert. I have enough losses under the belt, the screaming match that night, like, why do we do this? Like, that was under your watch. I can only speak by experience, and I learn a lot, right? Like you need those other angles. It can't just be a vacuum type approach. So you can't just have a number cruncher in a box, put together rates, and then have someone be at, I'm going to use the word gunpoint lightly, but then sign off on the metrics that they don't have. To me, that's why I just go back to building that relationship. I think that's what made me successful. I really do. It wasn't my innate smartness, my innate drive, although I feel like I do have a lot of it. It was the ability to take and understand information at a level that wasn't where my comfort was, and then marry up multiple different points of views. And to what you were saying about demonstrating a transparency factor to some respect. And I mean that very respectfully. Obviously, there's only a certain amount of margin that anyone could ever make. It's just by definition, the word margin, as overhead, we call it. There's things that everyone could check, right? I know what the prevailing rate is in the ILA, on the ILWU. I know what overtime is, right? But the demonstration or the delivery of that vehicle of describing, listen, when your ship comes in at 2 p.m, and like it's been missing its kind of docking procedure. Now it's obviously unique now with what's going on, but in the past, and I think in the near future, hopefully as things become more lax, is getting to those right timeframes, because they benefit from getting out on time versus us having to then charge. I got to dray things, right? You don't want to hear about drayage. Like what are we doing here? Like that should already kind of be fathomed from an operational perspective. Obviously, the circumstances will allow for it, but I think kind of uncoupling that and showing those different pieces. Yes, to your point, I think it does help. I don't know if that makes you, the shining star. Obviously, there is a relationship capital game here a little bit, right? Having the best rate doesn't always dictate that you're going to win, but having the lowest rate doesn't always dictate you're going to win either.
I think that's a good point. And it's funny you said that, because a lot of my successes come from that, because I've not, I think like you, if I don't know something all the way through, or if I don't, I want to know, exactly what's going on all the way through, in which, when you asked Tony, or I've been up to his place, but like usually when I get a new customer on or whatever it is, I've went up and visited the on-site just to get an idea for the docks. Like if I'm working these loads and I've got a team around this, like I want to be able to let them know that, hey, when you come in off to the left, there's a rock lot, you can drop your trailer there. Like I want to help make it so that there are less issues and it is more efficient. And I do know the business and your business even better. But, in regards to an RFP, it's the same thing. It's like, hey, here's my pricing and here's why. These 5 lanes here, they're probably going to be competitive. You're probably going to like those prices. Those are great backhauls for us. Really run with them. Now, these other 10 here, we're a little bit higher on. Now, our job obviously is to source carriers and drive those rates down and work on those. So keep us in mind if you've got people that fall off of those, or if you've got any spot bids, because we're going to continue to work on those. The other ones here, we priced high. We'd like to get to the point where we're at. But hey, if you end up going to spot bid, you can send it to us. If you want to put those rates on file rather than going to spot, maybe getting killed on spot in a certain, we could take them for those conversations, in which I've even had them where it's like, hey, when you get done and you've got carriers that you award out and they say they end up, I'm sure you've dealt with this, and they back out. They're like, oh no, I can't take that many actually. or I can't take these lanes, or they start failing on them. Before you finish up the RFP, give me a call. I'd love to sit down and work with you on them. Like, hey, TJ, this was my target rate on it. We awarded it to this carrier. They can't do it. This is what you were at, still a little bit high, but, and we can have that conversation because, I want to be able to sharpen my pencil, but I would also want to make sure that I'm making enough money to make this worth it. But so do you. You have to, because it doesn't matter. If I'm only making money and you're not, it's not a good relationship. We both have to. And I'm okay going a smaller margin, but I'd love to know that. And I think moving forward, I know Transplace for a long time, and I don't work with them, but they were known for how well they did their RFP processes and how well they managed those types of things. And, I remember listening to a podcast with the president of that company one time, and he was talking about how they have a core carrier group, in an RFP. I mean, they've got like the 5-4 core carriers that, yes, their pricing is going to be higher, but they've been using them on this for a while, and they trust them, and they've got relationships with them. And they're going to be a lot more lenient on the rates with them than they are going to be somebody who's brand new. And I love to come out and just telling them that, hey, I know I'm not a core carrier. I'd love to become one. And I don't think they hear that enough, where it's like, I'm not in this just to throw you some rates. I'm in here to try to build to where, we are one of your go-to, are one of your core carriers. I can have a conversation with you and help you out on some stuff that you're struggling with, because to me, that not only maintains the business that you're giving me, it may grow it even more, but it builds that relationship that it's a long-term strategy.
Yeah, I think that people really respond well when you do something that proves that you're there for the relationship as opposed to the transaction. Because I think you hit it. Like, you have so many people sometimes, like, and Will, maybe you can elaborate on this. Like, when you're doing an RFP, or you're like, everybody's just putting up numbers, right? But like, what I really don't understand is how people, when you're submitting an RFP, like, how do you really get your brand to stand out? Because like TJ said, having people there that, will come back to you, hey, you're not the lowest, but this, these people are here, this is where I need you to be. I feel like that's where the branding that I've been harping about so much, it like really sets you apart, because it's like, no, I might not be the cheapest, but look, I have this history of when I say that something's going to be there on time, it's going to be there on time. Yep. You're going to deal with me, and look, if you have a driver that, calls in sick or something that goes down at like, 7 o'clock when I'm trying to leave out the door, I'm still going to sit my ass right back down there, and I'm going to get you taken care of. Like, how do you really push that out when you're in an RFP situation, especially in a saturated market without branding?
So, it's interesting. My first job out of school, I used to work for Kimberly-Clark Professional. So I sold toilet paper and soap in Atlanta and Chicago. And I quickly realized what a commoditized product was versus something that you could truly differentiate. And you had to figure out a true way to brand your offering, because essentially I would walk into, my customers were Sears Tower or a hotel, these big, massive office buildings. We're competing for square footage. And my offering is, I'm going to save you 4 cents per napkin, like paper towel, and you're going to switch from Georgia Pacific to Kimberly-Clark's Cottonelle, right? And they're like, no, I don't, like, it's either you save me a ton of money or like, I don't want it. It's just a price game. That's it, right? But then what I realized you had to transcend was either the relationship barrier or a true proprietary offering barrier. Those are your options, right? Because if you look at transportation now with most large enterprise style shippers, it's a commodity, right? You're playing the price war. It's a race to zero, right? So you come in,
bottom. Yep.
That's it. So you come in and you're just undercutting people to try to get business if you're not in yet. And then when you get that business, if you're not committed to servicing it, you fail in the business, right? So now you have a tarnish on your brand, which, we're not going to do, but like, this is the cycle that it flows through, and it goes back out in a mini bid and somebody else has to come in at the rate in the current market or whatever. But I feel that to say, you've got to understand how to differentiate which opportunities are long-term relationships and which ones are transactional or strictly price driven. And so I've had examples of calls all this week, one of which I was trying to understand, is this an opportunity that's going to want to partner with us for years to come? Or is it strictly going to be, the words were, it's only on price. And if I get a rate that's cheaper than the other rate, and it's a quarterly RFP, I'm going to move the business. And so now I'm making different decisions based on how you're going to manage that than you would with someone that goes, hey, you know what? You charge $1,100 and I got a new carrier that's charging $1,000, but I've worked with you for years and I understand how that process works. I know the service I'm going to get. Or as you're negotiating and working through that RFP process, you have to be bold enough to grab someone's attention from the beginning until the point that they award, so that they know what you're offering. And now it's a partnership, because if you haven't moved any freight or, rendered your service, you're just another person. So you have to grab that time before you get to that award phase.
I love what you said, Will. The only thing that I kind of was thinking about while you were saying it was treating it differently if it's transactional. As a service provider, that's like the kiss of death. Everything's treated at the highest quality purpose. Now, I guess with terms of time involvement, I would completely agree with you.
That's what I don't mean with service. I mean,
I just wanted to kind of get that out because I knew where you were going with it. Well, I just wanted to it's almost like you and I thought the same way. I wanted to get that out there for you too. Like, just in general, there's only so much you can, it's a race. It's such a race to the bottom. I could tell you countless times with countless named large companies where it was like, listen, I'll give you last look, whatever your number comes in at, just you get sharpen your pencil. I can't tell you how many times I've heard sharpen your pencil. It's like I'm in 7th grade over here trying to do the old school thing. Come on, guys, listen, I want to work with you. I think where our value proposition is. It's beyond price. It's beyond what we do and getting things in and out with quality and an efficiency and safe. And, that doesn't matter. In some cases, their procurement teams are there to beat you down. Right now, This is where I meant having the right team in place and making sure that everyone's involved that should be involved. Right. I think most oftentimes than not, there's certain people that lead the account, but they don't involve everyone. Right. And if it's a marketing play, meaning if decisions based on relationship capital and you didn't realize that from the get-go, and you have a finance person or an ops person leading the charge, you could really hurt yourself. And I can tell you firsthand, I've seen that happen because I've completely tanked something and it was because I didn't know. And that's on me, right? So I took that away and say, hey, I'm not ever going to be the smartest guy in the room, but I'm going to make sure that everyone's in the room that's going to be able to at least answer it. So then I can understand what I need to do next. And I've taken that away to heart. And I take that in my own business for that matter. And it's more of a humbling factor than not. You know what I mean?
So critical.
I think that's why I've always despised RFPs. And I get that it is a crutch because of the way I sell. I'm a storyteller, so I'm not trying to sell you one thing. I'm always leading by selling myself. So I would devalue RFPs as a rep when I was selling because I don't want to spend all that time going through pages and pages of numbers that if somebody else just puts, 1 decimal lower than me, I'm out of the game. My whole thing is I don't want to even talk to you about price until you've decided whether or not you're going ahead with me.
But let me touch on that. I'm the same exact way. Didn't like RFPs. And then I realized myself, I don't have to do it anybody's way. I always do it my way.
Unless it's a mandate.
So what I started doing with RFPs, and I really,
I think you got to
piss off
maybe
my
understand,
managers.
Did I freeze? Oh,
yes, you did.
Sorry, did I freeze? Sorry. But I've always been one that, I don't have to do it anybody else's way besides my own. I can do it my way. I just got to vet these situations. There's going to be companies that give RFPs that don't care about service. They don't care about anything. They only care about price. They're not going to change their process at the shipper, which is terrible, and guys don't want to go in there. They're not going to change anything. They don't have the right team in place probably dealing with it, right, Trevor?
Yeah, but you're 50 cents less. Let's go.
Yeah. I'd rather put what I love doing and what I'm good at, Nico, like what you said, I'd rather put that effort into somewhere where it's going to be valued and it's going to make a difference, because I'd rather have 5 accounts that value that and that I can really grow than 10 accounts that I'm spinning my wheels on and wasting time and possibly losing money on and losing my reputation, maybe because of service, because their processes aren't there or whatever it is, because you get these cheap accounts and your reputation now goes down because you don't want to lose money. Right now you're squeezing carriers. You're not building relationships on them. You're charging them. They're cheap. Look at some of these big companies. I don't like running for that company, that broker, because they're cheap. Because they're cheap because they have to be, because the guy that did the RFP got the freight because he wanted to get an account. Right.
And look at the people who turn around. Like, those customers don't stick around. If a customer's only with you for a price, they're gonna shit talk you the moment they find a better price.
They're trying to burn.
Because it's not just, I left, TJ's company because I found a better rate. It's, no, TJ F this up and F that up. I'll never go back to him. But don't shit talk me because you found a better price. Just be a human being and say, hey, look, he was too expensive. Because I'll tell you up front, I'm not the cheapest person in the room. I have no desire to be the cheapest person in the room. I will tell you that I'm the best damn person in the room if I'm going to be on a project. And you're going to pay me for it, period.
But you work different, but I think the key is, and like what Trevor said, I'll let you go on this, Trevor, because I'll let you roll with this one, because it is about the person. I've had accounts that I've worked with that I've stopped working with, and then a new supply chain director, a new director of procurement comes in. I have a conversation with them and they're like, this place was a mess, dude. I can't believe they were doing this, and I'm like, and we have a conversation and I help and I work with them. It's happened a couple of times. It's been great because it's like really cool. He's like, I'm bringing in this, I'm adding this needs done. Sometimes that's why relationships do matter, because it is sometimes just the person who thinks they're right, who is going to do it their way. And at the end of the day, transportation, a lot of times when it comes to budget, I mean, Mike Nemi talks about all the time, they could actually save a ton of money. It's not given a lot of attention. It's just one of those costs that's going to be there no matter what. And hey, if that's what we're charging, that's what we're charging. If we don't have great service, whatever, it doesn't matter. We're more worried about this. We're more worried about that.
But every time you have to cut a service to hit your price point on a contract, doesn't that chance you losing your customer anyway?
Yeah. Hey, TJ, let me jump in real quick. I have to jet real quick, but Trevor, it was a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
I'm not sure if I feel better about myself because I learned so much tonight, or if I feel worse about myself because I realized how much I didn't know. I'm not sure how I feel, but definitely appreciate hearing from you. And Nico, Will, always great to see you guys. TJ, thanks for having me on, man.
Thanks. It was great meeting you, brother.
You're always sharp looking, Trey. Never feel bad about yourself. You look too good, brother.
By the way, nice avatar, man. We need to get that avatar up for you more often. Like, every time I see you online, I want to see that avatar first. Like, here comes Trey.
I've got a couple of options there for you. I got a couple, but anyways, I'll see you guys later. Have a good one. We'll see you.
Great meeting you, brother.
Trevor, what were you going to say on that?
I guess the way I look at things, and maybe I'm a little jaded. I feel like, although I'm not old, I feel like I'm old enough. And, I feel like I've hit this point where I look at things and I get very, I go all the way inside, right? I look and try to turn out a deal that failed. And I think of ways that could have been better. Was it relationship capital? 9 times out of 10, I just didn't have all the right people there. That's what I think personally. And I mean this sincerely, regardless of the other side, because clearly there's something on the other side that even got you to the table, right? If that person's no longer here, is it something that they were doing, right? Is it something that was overlooked? And quarterbacking the deal, I think, would win things more times than not. I feel like at the end, I felt like I was a great quarterback, right? I wasn't the smartest finance person, smartest accounting, smartest ops, smartest marketing, but damn, I could lead the charge, right? I can get everybody, I could speak the language. I knew it was respected. And I'm a human being. I want to see the company succeed. I want to see the people inside the company succeed. The latter part first, obviously. I always want to see people succeed beyond the company, but I look at it in such a way, and I kind of try to break them out and say, all right, was it based on price? Was it based on quality? And then you start looking and you put all those things in a box and you say, all right, I have DPMO, you get Six Sigma, you get awesome terminology out of here that everyone loves to hear. There's only so many million defects per whatever. And then I've been this accurate, or I've done this report. And then, one of the things I wanted to say, and long-winded answer, is that it's important to have loss leaders. I mean, everything can't be a rock star account. It's impossible to have a business that is just full of A+ things. It's like, strategically, where's the business going to go? And if you want to be, top in class, then to your point, Nico, it's like maybe there are a higher weight towards those quality versus quantity. But maybe I'm not. Maybe I want to be the one who's just always going to grab a low level price. That's also a strategy. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if that's the business end and that's what's given by the CEO, the board, equity firm, whoever owns them, that's great too. If it's a combination of the two, just make sure whomever you're reporting to is unaware of that, right? So you need to be pretty transparent. If this is what we're going to do, because this is the edict, then that's where we're going to be. And you fall to a deviation, just looking at my finance side, one side or the other of the mean, right? So I kind of say that just out there a little bit because I don't know if there is a right answer, quite honestly. I mean, if you ask me, I'd like to be like right in the middle. I'd like to be the guy that can always, I'll call it, shoe up to get to where he needs to be, but I don't want to disrespect the accounts that I can learn on, quite honestly. So it's a good mic drop moment right there.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's spot on. Spot on. But I think all of this, and everything how much with the issues we're seeing right now and everything, how much do you think that has to do with when things get busy, sometimes relationships get put to the side?
Yep.
I think sometimes they're not as valued. And I think there's not as many people working together right now, I'd say. And, like you said, there's unions involved. There's all these different things. But what do you think the main thing is? I mean, you got a lot of ships that are anchored out that are not getting unloaded. You've got not a lot of space. So you've got lack of space.
Yeah.
You've got lack of chassis. You've got driver wait time, which leaves lack of drivers. I mean, is there one thing you think that, or is it just a combination of all of it?
I think if you said it wasn't a combination, I think that would be irresponsible. I do believe. Now, listen, if you said that one plays more than the other, I mean, this goes all the way to politics. Whatever your affiliation is, there's a positive, negative to everything. So it's almost like you're trying to hit a target that's not even moving. It's just omnipresent, right? It's just physically in two places at one time. Like, how do you hit that? I think what'll happen is things start to slow down, become more clear. And some of those, I'll call it noise, distractions, if you will, maybe that are politicized, will shear away. And then you'll get the underlying roots of, obviously the infrastructure is a problem. Obviously, there's certain things that, obviously fossil fuels and things that make it difficult for the planet to survive. Not, like I like my gas car, but right, EV makes sense. There's a solar and wind component, right? There's so many ways that impact it. And if you're talking about what reduces the slow times at the port, I don't even think if the port was just, laser beaming things from one to another, if it would necessarily change right this second. I think a lot of those things have to happen all the way from the top to ease up to then see what the real problem is. That's just my personal opinion.
I think it's,
and I think you're right, because I think, like you said though too. And quick question to follow up: do you think it? Every time about Christmas time, you're not gonna. Do you really think it's? Do you think it's gonna be as bad as what it's being pushed out to be?
Listen, I don't know. I mean, listen, that's a real thing. Like, people talk about it. Like, I don't know. I would hope to say no for the consumers of the United States. I'd hope to say no, but we've been down this road before where the supply chain gets choked. Maybe not to the extent it is now, and it does have a real impact store to store. I mean, I look at something as simple as an electronic and a PlayStation 5, right? Just think of that one unique model, right? That has been something that's never been out. It's got a chip shortage. It's hard to get. Now we're going to go into a place where the entire logistics and infrastructure in the United States is choked. Is it ever going to get out? Now, if I just look at that in itself, all right, who gives a crap? It's for gaming. I personally do, because I like the game. But in general, like, does that expand beyond me, right? With cars. Obviously, there's a big deal on autos now, and new and used, obviously the market. So it's like that dovetail effect. So I do believe it's going to have an impact. I wish I could give you any idea if it's going to be catastrophic or just, hey, we're used to it as a society now?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's gonna affect things. It's going to have I think it's gonna be more niched, right? It's gonna be certain things. Like you said, even the housing industry, right? If you can't get lumber, if lumber is more expensive, building materials are more expensive, then builders are charging more, which means houses are more. It's just like a whole thing, right? So, but then you hear, we're not gonna, we're not gonna be able to get gifts and this and that. And that's like, hey, I'm sorry, but this is America, and people in America love making money, and they're gonna find a way to sell it, right? They're gonna find a way to make sure you can buy it. Whether it's efficient or not, it's gonna happen. But like you said, I think a lot of it does have to do with politics too, because there's no doubt, when it comes to transportation, logistics, or whatever, there's lean more towards one side, and they would want to blow that up as something that the administration had something to do with, right? Just like the other way around did it. So sometimes you just got to kind of look at where it's going to affect and what it's going to affect and just adapt to it. And I think everybody's so far has done a pretty good job of it. But it is what it is.
Yo, I gotta hop here. Trevor, great to meet you. Nico, great to see you again. TJ, nice hat.
All right, brother.
I'll see
Thanks
you
for
later.
being on. And we will wrap it up. Trevor, I appreciate having you on, man. Like I said, every time we have a show and we have somebody on like you, or we do this, it's like I could do another hour.
Listen, I trust me, I would absolutely love to. It's a phenomenal meeting, you guys. Listen, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I love talking about this industry. Although it's been a few years since I've been active, like very, very active inside it, I still get a lot of phone calls and I love it. It's not something that's ever going to leave me. And I had some great mentors in the ops side. Very specific one gentleman who really taught me a lot. And if I can get him involved on one of your shows down the road, I will. Just listening to him speak, he was my guy. I put it that way. He taught me everything I knew in the business, and it would be phenomenal. I'll reach out to him and see if he want to do it.
Yeah, send me his info, because this whole thing started with me, Tony, Darnell, Brandon Beta, and we'd be on the phone. And when you start talking freight and you start talking logistics, it just flows. We'd be having a beer on a Saturday, and next thing you know, it's like 2 hours, and you're like, what? And we were like, dude, we can make like a podcast and just have it laid back, no script, nothing. Have a topic and come and bring some interesting people on, and it just goes. Like, I don't know if we've ever ended early.
That's how I met Sarah. And I apologize that it's been a very, very long day for me. And I would talk to you for literally hours, but then I would get murdered by my wife.
Same here. Mine just pulled in.
But I really appreciate it. It was great meeting you, TJ and Nick, and everybody. And like I said, please reach out. I'd love to speak offline as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Trevor. Thanks, Nico, for being on. Thank you, Trey Griggs. And thank you, Will. And not thank you, Tony. You're supposed to be back from vacation. But
hey, Nick Romero just said that he's on his way to the hospital, so keep him in your thoughts, man.
My baby. We're talking freight.
There we go. I hope all is well. Listen, you guys be great. Thanks again for having me. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, guys.